Mary Beth Worthy Kirkland, MaryBethWorthy Kirkland. Walt, can you believe they have asked me to tell them about you? Don't you wish you had been a lot nicer to your little sister? As Chuck Yeager said, I tell things the way I see them, and that's not necessarily the way they actually happened. So here goes, Walter. Walter was born in Great Falls, Montana on November 22nd, 1946. His father, our father, was a hunt pilot during World War II, and our mother was a naval recruiting officer in the Waves. We lived in back of the beyond in a little place called Hatcher Station. This was the old Worthy home place. My mother and father moved there after Walter was born. And my mother was a city girl. It was a big adjustment for her coming to Hatcher Station. Okay, John.
Okay. Anytime.
Okay. Walter was always very creative. He could catch a fish with a bent pin. He could kill a bird with a slingshot. And I remember when Walter started to school, and believe me, there was none of this with my mom and dad saying, now we're going to find the perfect school for our children. They had 4 children in 5 years. It was the little country school that we all attended, and when Walter was in the 1st grade, his teacher said to my mom during a parent-teacher conference, he is one of the smartest little boys that I have ever taught. And she was just about ready to retire. So Walter, she recognized some of your special qualities quite early. Walter started out with a group of children, and they stayed together. The little school went from 1st grade all the way to senior in high school. And these children stayed together throughout their entire schooling in Georgetown. When Walter graduated, he was a member of the largest class ever to graduate from Georgetown High School, 17 students. And also, I want to mention one more little thing. One of the people in this class, Walter sort of liked her a little bit, and at the grand opening of the Davenport Hotel, as she was telling the story, she said, Walter always smelled like gasoline, and he had dirty fingernails. So she just wasn't that interested. However, I think she was quite impressed when she arrived for the grand opening of the Davenport Hotel. And Walter and Karen rolled out the carpet to everybody. We had so much fun, all 38 family members. Now, at home, life on the Worthy farm included a weekly trip to town. And usually on Saturday morning, we would go to Eufaula, Alabama, and our little area, Hatcher Station, was located very close to the Alabama-Georgia line. So we would cross the Chattahoochee River, and at about that place, Walter would say, "Now let me out at the junkyard. I need to look around at Uncle Bryant's junkyard." And so we would pull in, let Walter out at the junkyard, and then we would head to the Piggly Wiggly for the week's grocery shopping trip. And Walter would collect the scraps from the junkyard that he would use for the next week's innovations. And I remember he and his best friend, Dan McKenzie, wanted to have a go-kart. And there wasn't the money to go out and just buy a go-kart. So they cobbled one together from the scraps, and it rolled beautifully. It just was a neat little contraption, and it had the nickname of the Purple Peril. And they wanted the Purple Peril to go faster, so they needed a motor. They went to Daddy, and they said they needed $5. They had located a motor. And Daddy said, "Well, here are the keys to the truck, and you all may go, you and Dan go along the side of the road and pick up all the scrap iron, fill up the back of the truck, and you can haul it over to Uncle Bryant's junkyard, and you should get about $5, just enough to buy your motor." That is exactly what they did, and the Purple Peril was motorized in no time. Okay, John. Another money-making project was the Arizona cypress Christmas tree business. Walter and Dan would go to the farm that my mom was responsible for because my father was a flight instructor in Moultrie, Georgia, and our mom was in charge of overseeing the help on the farm, and they were planting 5,000 Arizona cypress seedlings. These trees grew, and over the years, they turned into lovely little trees. Well, Walter and Dan decided that they would have this Christmas tree business. They went to the field, they would saw off the trees, drag them through the field to the side of the road, and throw them up on the pickup truck and drive them 17 miles to Eufaula. They would set up shop at the busiest corner in Eufaula, Alabama, and many of the antebellum homes at Christmas time had worthy Christmas trees that reached from the floor to the ceiling, and some of them even came with a special little bird nest. The trees sold for $5 each, and it was just an exciting time around Christmas. Come rain or shine, Walter and Dan were there with their Christmas tree business on the street corner in Eufaula. What fun it was. Sometimes Walter would even talk my friend Dan's sister Donna and me into helping drag those trees to the edge of the field. He would promise us maybe a chocolate milkshake from the drugstore, the corner drugstore nearby, and I'm telling you, that was a treat. So he could get us to work. We did a pretty good job. If it was an especially muddy day, we really got that opportunity to help them. And I remember another project that Walter had. He was a paper boy for the Albany Herald. There were 3 houses right near, within a 1-mile radius of where we lived. And there was an airplane that would fly over our house, and it would drop out a little packet of 3 newspapers. And every now and then, the papers would land in the middle of the big oak tree in the front yard. And Daddy and Walter would go, the birds would squawk, so we would know the papers were there also. But when we saw the airplane, we would go and look for the papers being dropped out. But anyway, if they landed in the oak tree, Daddy and Walter would go and get the gun and shoot the papers out of the tree, and then Walter would go make his paper deliveries. Okay, John? After graduating from Georgetown High School, Walter entered he was accepted at Auburn University. Daddy was so happy. Bryant Jr. Worthy had gone to Auburn, and he was a mechanical engineer. Such a smart, handsome young man, and that was Bryant Jr.'s father was Daddy's brother. And Daddy just thought, oh, that is the perfect path for Walter. He needs to do exactly that. So that was Daddy's goal for Walter, to be a mechanical engineer graduating from Auburn University. However, when Walter got to Auburn, he was much more interested in making money than he was studying. Pop-Pop, our grandfather, decided that he needed a new car because his car was 10 years old. So he gave Walter his 55 Buick, and Pop-Pop was going to branch out to a nice new Cutlass Oldsmobile. So Walter took that 55 Buick to Auburn University, and he would drive by houses that had old clunker automobiles up on blocks. And Walter would knock on the door and say to the residents, would you be interested in selling me the radiator out of that old car that you have up on blocks? I'll give you $2 for it. Well, invariably, he could talk them into doing that. And he would collect these radiators. He even had to take the back seat out of that 55 Buick to have more room to collect more radiators to make more money. He would take the radiators to the junkyard and sell them for $4, 100% profit. However, a problem was arising at Auburn University. A letter arrived inviting Walter to leave Auburn without a degree. Well, our Daddy was upset about that. He said to Walter, you are going to be digging ditches the rest of your life if you don't get your act together. Well, you know what? He is digging ditches. They're just a little bit bigger ditches now. I remember this story. Walter was buying grocery stores in Spokane, turning them into Class A office space. And one day, he and Karen got a phone call, and there was a broken pipe. And one thing about Walter, he will never ask his employees to do anything that he would not do himself, and probably that he has not already done many times. So Walter went to this grocery store, to this office building, and newly renovated beautifully. And he got down to find out what the problem was and began fixing it. And he was digging, and a man walked by with his little boy. And the man stopped and looked at Walter working, and he said to his son, he said, now son, this is why you need to study hard in school. You do not want to end up like this man digging ditches. Walter took his shovel and he stuck it down in the snow, and he looked at the little boy and he said, young man, listen to your daddy. He is right. Okay.
I think it's great.
Ah.
Wonderful job. Like a pro.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's very good.
John,
I'm serious.
John, you give words of encouragement. Your words are generous, I can tell. Oh, goodness. Okay, let's see. All right. After Auburn, Walter joined the Air Force. They gave him a battery of tests to determine where the best spot, where he could do the most good, I guess, or maybe just to figure out what they were going to do with him. And they found out that he tested very, very well. They even invited him to consider an officer program. Of course, that would mean a little more school, and it would mean Walter was just not sure that he wanted to do this. In fact, he was almost positive he was not going to do this. So they decided that Walter would be an outstanding survival instructor. What a perfect match for Walt to be. Remember, we grew up in Back of the Beyond, and our life as children was entirely a survival experience. We were raised with diamondback rattlesnakes crawling around, and I remember when we would go out the door to pick blackberries or fine, fat, juicy plums on the side of the road, Daddy would say, "Now you all remember, if you see a rattlesnake rattle, just stay calm. Don't throw your berries. Just move away quickly, though." And Walter was a wonderful survival instructor, we are all sure. He only had to work teaching survival instructing 2 or 3 days a week, as I recall. This left the rest of the time for projects, and he decided that he wanted to build a little round house. Now, on a buck private's salary, he could not afford so much. He had a very lean budget for this little house. He had to go to the store and buy bent nails and straighten the nails with a hammer. That wasn't really the only problem. He really didn't know everything about building a house either. But there was a house being built right down the street. And Walter would walk down the street to see what they were doing to their house, and then he would go back and do it to his little house. It was a red-letter day when that house was completed and the deal was closed. I think he made about $2,000 on that deal. It was a special time for Walter B. Worthy, Jr. I remember one day visiting Walter and Karen in Spokane, arriving at their duplex. They lived in one half of the duplex. And there was a ladder that was propped up, and one had to climb the ladder to enter their front door. When you got in the house, you noticed the little kitchen sat right over here. And in the kitchen was, as I recall, a brown refrigerator. And on one whole side of the refrigerator, there was a giant dent. Walter had found this a good deal at the scratch and dent shop. But Walter said, "It keeps the food just fine." The very best thing Walter did in Spokane was he met Karen. She was a wonderful first-grade school teacher, so organized, a detail person, just loved her little class of children, and had so much patience. I think she was most surprised at Walter's office. It was on the dashboard of his Spalding junkyard pickup truck. That is where his bills accumulated and his correspondence. They were arranged on his dashboard. Karen stepped right in and started helping him get a little more organized. She is a wonderful person, very patient, very calm, and all the little niceties that you see here at the Davenport Hotel, it's because of Karen and all the wonderful, thoughtful things that she does. For our family, she doesn't forget an anniversary, a birthday, a special occasion, and she always has a very sweet, precious word of encouragement for all family members, as well as anybody else that she speaks with. It truly is her forte to say the right thing at the right time. Karen, We love you. Walter had been enchanted with the Davenport for about 15 years, and he had tried many times to purchase it. However, in the year 2000, the purchase was completed, and the rest is history. I only wish our father had lived to see what you, Walter, and you, Karen, have accomplished. John. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's perfectly fine.
Okay. Walter had been enchanted with the Davenport for about 15 years. Finally, in the year 2000, the Davenport purchase was completed, and Walter was so excited. He and Karen are certainly a couple that make things happen. Walter is a dreamer, and he has a knack for seeing possibilities out of unique circumstances. When Daddy was in Spokane on one of his visits, I remember Joe, an Air Force buddy of Walter's, sitting down and talking to Daddy, and he said, "You know, it really was wonderful that you gave Walter such a good start in building." Daddy looked at Joe in stark amazement, and he said, "Joe, I haven't given Walter anything but a hard time all his life." That's really not completely true. Daddy gave Walter good walking around common sense, and he gave Walter free, unsolicited advice 24 hours, morning, noon, and night, anytime, just as much of it as Walter could stand. When that phone rang, Daddy was so excited if it were Walter, which he called every single day, and they had a very special relationship, bantering back and forth, give and take. But it really is special to know that you and Karen have done so much and given so much back to the community of Spokane. The Davenport truly is a northwestern jewel of which the whole community is so proud. If Daddy could only see you, Walter, he would be just as proud as your mother is, who is sitting right here today. And I said to Mama, before I was getting ready to come here, I said, "What would you like for me to say for you?" And she said, "Oh, I would like for you to tell everyone how very important our little Georgetown Methodist Church was to our family when you children were growing up." Our mother was the junior choir director, and we all sang in the choir. There were 25 active choir members, and every single Sunday in the big church service, we sang our junior choir anthem, and Walter was such a handsome little choir boy with his cardinal red robe and his white Peter Pan collar. Oh, that was a very special time in our lives. And incidentally, you will see pictures of the Georgetown Methodist Church 100th reunion. Walter and Karen were so generous and gave the little church brand new, beautiful carpet for the whole church and all the Sunday school rooms. Okay, John. I might want to redo that if you don't mind.
You can redo it, that's fine too. Would you rather just, and I would start off by saying this is take 2 of.
Just a minute. Obviously, we're very proud of you, Walter and Karen. And here is a little poem that I wrote in your honor. This Hall of Fame award recognizes two people great, a teacher and a dreamer combined by fate. The Davenport, the center of gala events. Many congratulations the city sent. In the dreaming and planning and staying on track, there's simply nothing that you two lack. Integrity, courage, and enthusiasm became your claim to fame, with worthy enterprise employees a loyal part of your game. You never let the community down in any way, and that is why we all say today, congratulations and best wishes. You are our claim in this Hall of Fame. We love you both.
Okay, and anytime.
Now, Walter and Karen, Doug wrote this little poem for you all, and the community has not heard this. We did touch some of these little areas during the family grand opening segment of the grand opening of the Davenport. But this is kind of an interesting little poem, and it is so true to your life, Walter. From Oink's Cafe to the Davenport, on an overgrown stretch of deserted track, Hatcher Station lies like an abandoned shack. In the far outreaches of the back of the beyond, a house, a family, and a cement pond. Snakes in the grass, frogs in the pool, hunting and fishing every day, there's no school. A rural existence of this there's no doubt, well prepared for life, just like a good scout. Lessons learned in such a simple way, raising pigs in a pen at Oink's Cafe. The ghosts of Clem Bonnet and Luck Granger too, haunting our memories as Big Six and Feet do. Toot worked the fields of the worthy clan, while Sinella toted water in a pan on her head. They lived in wood cabins we called the camp, for a few dollars a day in the heat and the damp. In an old country schoolhouse, the learning came. English and writing were Betty Bland's claim to fame. Annie Mae Brazil, a math teacher great, taught Walt that stringing zeros might be his fate. Uncle Bryant taught lessons of a different kind. There's hidden value in work and things that you find. Other junkyard lessons, diamonds in the rough, cobbling clunkers from scrap and cast-off stuff. Dan and Spring Hill, the Go Mall and the Good Life. Katie's good biscuits, no need for a knife. With Mose and Matthew, good manners were needed. The Comer II and Camp Helen, thoughts well seated. Auburn and Air Force did not agree. Walter tried furniture and working for free. At sales he was good, but finally he went, taught water survival where he was sent. Hammer and nail, weld and pound, create something from nothing on distressed ground. Cobbled together a well-knit crew, and with the luck of the Irish, found a good wife too. Rock Point was built on solid rock. The Davenport morphed a whole city block. All culled from experiences miles away, learned on the pig trails near Oink's Cafe. That's it.
Good.
He might not
10
want
seconds
that.
from running out of tape.
You what?
We're about 10 seconds from running out of tape, so that was perfect.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, good.
The one I have on the screen.
Okay, Lynnell Caudell, Lynnelle, Caudell, Caudill, General Manager of the Davenport.
Oh, great. Okay. That's a beautiful building. I love
Thanks,
that.
it is.
That's so fantastic.
And Walt and Karen deserve all the credit.
Oh, they surely do. And the camera's running. I'll make sure they see that.
Oh dear, okay, yeah. It's time for my annual review, yeah.
Let's start from the beginning. How did you meet Walt and Karen?
You know, I met them when I moved to Spokane and came across the Davenport during its renovation period. and was amazed. Beautiful building, prettier than most hotels in other cities I had been, and got to know Walt. And from day one, in meeting both of them, I just valued them a great deal, and eventually ended up coming to work for them.
How did you end up working for them?
You know, I was doing some consulting, and I still worked for a hotel company out of Seattle, and doing some work on my own from home, and thought, oh, maybe I could, because I had moved to Spokane and our residence was here, although I was commuting back and forth a bit. It may make sense to work with them, and it was probably